Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I want to share with you something that I already kind of knew, but it's one of those things that you know and you forget. This week, I spent the week baking a lot of cookies. So I basically have accumulated a lot of different types of cookie sheets throughout the years. And since it was a lot of cookies that I was baking, I decided to use all of them instead of waiting for some of them to bake, letting them cool, transferring them to the cooling rack, and starting the process all over again. So what I did is I used all the pans that I had, and I've also started using the non-stick mats to bake my cookies in. But I also ran out of those, so I started using what I used to use back in the beginning, which is the parchment paper. And I noticed a very drastic difference between the cooking time, how burnt the cookies were, how soft they turned out. And I know it sounds kind of obvious to some people, but when you're new to baking or when you're new to something, you haven't really had the exposure or the time to experiment. So I just figured that this might be a little bit interesting if you're interested in seeing, or if you're actually doing research on baking times and ovens, those types of things. So maybe like the nerdy side of baking. But now I would like to add a little bit of a kind of like a little piece of knowledge. So it all depends on your oven. It depends on the pans that you use. It depends on whether you use parchment paper or non-stick mats. It just all depends. And that's the thing about baking, or literally anything that you do in life, whether it's a project, personal, recreational. Everything requires practice, and it requires that you use what you have to your advantage. So basically what I'm saying is, like, for example, the people that post recipes on their blogs or videos, whatever, and then you see negative comments of people saying, oh, it didn't turn out the way that it did in your photo, it's not the same consistency, it's ugly, it's hard, it's too soft, you know, whatever the result is. But what we don't realize as bakers when we just start out is that it all depends on where you live. Is it humid? Is it hot? Is it too dry? Do you live in a place that is above sea level, below sea level? But basically what I'm saying is your results depend on what you have and where you are. So don't be too quick to judge a recipe or a project on your first try. Try it multiple different times, different ways, with different things that you have, to ensure that you're getting the right consistency, the right result, and the result that you ultimately want. So without talking any longer, I am going to take you into the kitchen. I will show you all the different kinds of pans that I have. And I have to warn you, some of them are kind of old, and those I don't really use as often, but I'm gonna use them for this little experiment that I'm doing to show you how cookies bake in different pans using different liners. And don't forget that if you do have any questions, you can leave them down below. If you haven't subscribed yet and you would like to, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to like and share this video. Okay, so the first pan that I'm going to show you is a Wilton pan. The size is 17.25 by 11.5 inches. I bought this at Michael's, and it's basically one of the first, no, it's actually the first set of pans that I got, because I have 4 of these. So when I initially started, this is the pans that I started baking cookies in, and it's a basic non-stick pan. It's not a like a professional standard size. Like, for example, if you have one of those little rolling carts that has the spaces for the little pans, this one doesn't fit because of the handles. And here, the reason that I have separated the non-stick mat and the parchment paper is just to see if it'll give us a different result. I mean, obviously using the same pan, but with different liners. I have a cookie here, and for all the pans, I will use the same cookie, the same size, same thickness. And in order for this trial or the test to be a little bit more controlled, I'm going to bake all of my cookies at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 11 minutes. And once they have cooled, I will take them out and show you the backs of the cookies to see if any of them were underbaked, if any of them burned, and just to kind of compare the difference in the baking pans. So again, this is Wilton. I got it at Michael's, and it is not a professional standard size pan. My next pan is... the brand is Masterclass, I believe. I recently got this one, maybe a few weeks ago. I believe in the beginning of December. But it's a lot thicker than the Wilton pan that I just showed you. And this one is a professional size. Let me see what size it is. Hold on. It's so professional that it doesn't even have a size on it. But... basically it fits on my little bun rack on the little cart that has the spaces for the cookie sheets. And on this one, I will be using the parchment paper to see if it'll differ from the thickness of this one versus the Wilton, and to see how it bakes the cookies. So again, the same cookie, same thickness, same baking time, same temperature, to see how it turns out. Okay, this next one is a tad old, as you can tell. I haven't used this pan because I don't like that. I started to notice that when I bake on it, the cookies that are on the edge here, since the edges are a little bit thinner, they get burned from one side, and then the cookies in the middle are still underbaked or not baked. So that's why I stopped using it. It is a Wilton pan. It's one of those that advertises like even baking or whatever. So basically, let me see what size it is. It's a size 18 by 14. And the reason I'm holding it is because I went ahead and baked my cookie while I was showing you the other cookie. So this is how the bottom of the pan looks. And I don't know if you can tell here, but that part there is a little bit more raised. So I think that because this part goes up higher than the rest of the pan, anything that touches this small lip here will be burnt. The rest of the cookies will be underbaked. So, you know, it's not my liking. So that's why I stopped using the pan. But anyway, I went ahead and baked the cookie, and this silicone liner is one of those liners that they sell at Home Goods. I forgot what brand it is, but I'll insert it here so you can kind of like compare different brands. But basically, what I feel the difference between this liner and the one that I am going to show you in the next pan is this one was like maybe $4 or $5, and it feels a lot thinner. So anytime that I bake anything using this liner, it kind of burns, or it kind of like gets a little bit brown if you don't measure the temperature or the baking time as well as you would want to. Versus with the other ones, let me show you the other pan with the other cookie. So basically, this is the other pan. This pan is a professional standard size pan, and what I have noticed with this This pan is my favorite because no matter where your cookies are on the pan, or no matter what side of your oven, because you know how sometimes your oven is hotter on one side than the other, for some reason these pans will bake your stuff evenly. I promise. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. But with this, my favorite thing to do, since I find that sometimes the length of the parchment paper, you'll have to cut it. Sometimes it's not touching the edge, whatever. I like to use these silicone mats, and I got these on Amazon. This brand is called The Simple Baker. This one was a little bit expensive. Obviously, nothing compared to the little Silpat. This one mat was $18. I did find another brand of mats like these that were 3 for $12. That brand is Aprons, and it's basically the same thing. The color is just a little bit lighter and the little ears are pointy. Let me show you. So it's this mat, and you can see the difference there, but it's basically the same quality. These are 3 for $12. This one's $18. Anyway, so these mats is kind of like, when they say you get what you pay for. So obviously you don't have to spend a lot of money when you're investing in like cookie stuff, when you're a newbie, or when you're just starting out your business. These, you don't have to have them, but I do feel like the quality is a lot better as far as baking evenly than the other mats, because the other ones are fairly thinner. These feel a lot thicker. So when you touch the other one from TJ Maxx or Home Goods, it feels kind of like the thickness of a paper, and this one is probably like 5 papers, to kind of put it in perspective for you. But so here is the last pan. I'm waiting for these to cool before I start showing you anything. Okay, so here's the Wilton pan, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove the cookie. And also, before I forget, anytime that you are removing cookies from your baking pans, I recommend to use a spatula. You can even use one of the smaller ones. If you don't have a spatula, you can use one of those little like a pie cutter or pie spatula. I don't know what they're called, but basically it's to prevent from, after you let your cookies cool on your pan, what they'll do is they'll start sticking to the pan. So instead of just picking it up because it might be stuck, you'll want to dip your spatula into either some flour or powdered sugar, and then just lightly find like a little loose edge and make your way into the cookie. The reason that I say that is because this little guy here is a casualty of Christmas. And basically what I did is I let my cookies cool on the pan, and then I wanted to transfer them over to a cooling rack. So what I went to do is, I had already gotten all of them and I just had this one left. So I went to pick him up, and this leg got stuck onto the liner, and here's what happened. I don't know if you can see, but he has a crack here. So what I did is I was like, oh, maybe since it's still a little bit warm, it'll just like bake itself together again. I don't know why I thought that. Anyway, so I went ahead, I decorated him, whatever. I go to pick him up again last night, and his foot falls. You see how fragile it is? Because it had ripped all the way, and I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I thought that the royal icing would be strong enough to hold it, whatever. I don't know. I basically had to make more dough just to cut one more little man, because I was not gonna risk sending him like this with my customer. So anyway, and in case you wonder like how my cookies look on the backside, this is how I like my cookies to look. I don't like them to be burnt. I don't like them to be like uneven on one side, and I prefer my cookies to be softer than harder. So here's how my cookies look on the inside. I don't know if that's focusing. But they're really soft. And let's see how this guy looks here, this little swimsuit. Okay, so what I can notice is a little bit of browning up here. Everything else looks pretty even, but I mean, I'm not mad at it. It looks pretty good. This cookie would actually pass. So, and on the top, it's baked all the way through. So, I mean, if we're doing the test, like the no burn test, then I think this one passes it. I think the only reason why these baked a little bit more brown than the rest is because it's probably a thinner part. I'm not really sure, but let's check the other cookies. So here's our pink masterclass pan with the parchment paper. And the reason that I left this wrinkly paper, I had used it to bake this little gingerbread man. And what I used to do when I started baking in the beginning, like when I first started the business, is I used to use one piece of parchment paper and just keep using it throughout, so I wouldn't have to cut any more pieces. But what I noticed is that it gets wrinkly after you bake, so it'll cause ripples on the back of your cookies. I mean, it's not a big deal, but if it is a big deal to you, you know, like if it bothers you, then it's probably gonna be a problem. But I mean, it's not anything big or anything. So let's look at these on the back. Okay, so these have a lot more browning all around than they do in the center. And I don't know if you can see the ripples. Like, they look like little wrinkles on the cookie, like little crevices. So this one is definitely a lot more burnt than this. So let's take a look at the other ones. Now I'm very intrigued with this little weird project. So let's see. Okay, so here is the professional baking pan with our little professional non-stick liner. And don't forget, this one's my favorite. Oh, this one, I didn't even have to go, girl. You just came right off the mat. Oh, look. Okay, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. I wasn't being biased or anything just because the little liner is pink, but it really does bake your cookies evenly. There's no wrinkles, there's no burns, and don't forget that I baked all of these at the same temperature, 350 for 11 minutes. Let's go get the final pan, which was the Wilton one. Okay, and on this pan, remember that we have the parchment paper on one side, and then one of those thin little, like the paper thin silicone mats. So let's see if there's any difference between these, and then we'll compare it to the other ones. Oh, no ma'am. Okay, here we go. Okay, so for some reason, I feel like the paper thin baking mat, I don't know what it has, or I don't know what's going on, but it seems to me that the pan alone with the parchment paper would work a lot better. Like, if this was your only option to use parchment paper, just use parchment paper, girl. Like, don't even worry about the wrinkles, okay? Because I feel like for the $5 that I paid for this, I don't know, like, the cookie's soft at the top, but the bottom is burnt. I mean, it's not a big deal. Obviously, it's still edible, but For me, I just feel like when I put it in a little, like in a clear bag, that's gonna bother me, like the little spots, you know? So here's the up close. So this is the side with the liner. This is parchment paper on that Wilton pan. Maybe I would say that if you use this Wilton pan with the parchment paper, do 8 minutes if you want your cookies to look anything like this. The cookies will still bake, but they probably will have a lot less than this. So let me show them all to you in a way where we can compare and see. I don't know if we can get all of this in the frame without getting anybody else out of the picture, but okay, so I hope you can see this. But okay, let me just move over a cinch. Ooh. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Okay, so a little burnt, wrinkly, a lot burned on this side, burnt and wrinkly, perfect, and just a little bit burnt. So I mean, you literally can do anything you want. Any of these cookies are edible. It just depends on what your preference is. And remember, the next time that you're testing out a recipe, you're trying out anything new, or for example, like if it's your first time making an order, if it's your first time making whatever your customer ordered, and if you have time, try to practice beforehand, because the day of the event or the day that you're baking for the event, you don't want to be surprised with this. So basically what I mean by that is you don't want to be surprised with cookies that are perfect, and then cookies that are burnt, and then cookies that are like a little bit wrinkly and crazy, because believe it or not, a lot of your customers will notice. A lot of people that pay for quality, they will notice these things and they will point it out to you. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of these. So if you want all your cookies to be wrinkly, then bake this way. If you want all your cookies to look a little bit more burnt, then that's perfectly fine, and just do them all the same. So I don't know what you guys think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know which cookie is your favorite. And also let me know if you have any of these pans, and if you've noticed any difference when using parchment paper, silicone mats, or just like the different pans. I find it very interesting, and I'll probably do another one of these, just testing out maybe like cake pans or like different temperatures. I don't know, I just found it very interesting. Again, this is just my opinion, and I'm just showing you the different results that you get using the same oven, the same temperature, same baking time, and it just kind of gives you a little bit of perspective on just doing a lot more research than just reading a recipe, and just being well informed. But anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go. I'll see you in my next video, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.